Egypt, one of the greatest civilizations in history. A land of mighty pharaohs, grand temples, and the powerful Nile River. But how did the Israelites, the descendants of Abraham and Jacob, arrive in this land? Last time we walked through Jerusalem's earliest days. Today, we follow a journey, one that begins with a dream, leads to betrayal, and ends in triumph. This is the story of Joseph, known as Yusuf, alayhis salam, in Islam, a man whose life changed history, connecting Canaan, Egypt, and the fate of his people. A story told in the Torah, Bible, and Quran, but also a story that historians and archaeologists have searched for in the ruins of Egypt. Let's journey back over 3,000 years to uncover the truth. Joseph, Yusuf in Islam, was the 11th son of Jacob Yaqub, and the great-grandson of Abraham, Ibrahim. His mother Rachel died young, leaving Jacob to cherish Joseph above his 11 brothers. Binyamin, who was the youngest, was from the same mother as Joseph, while the rest were older half-brothers. Joseph was special not only because he was loved by his father, but because he had a gift. In Jewish and Christian perspectives, the Bible says Joseph had a special gift, dreams sent by God. In one, he saw his brothers' sheaves of wheat bowing to his. In another, the sun, moon, and stars bowed to him. His brothers hated him for it. Genesis 37:5-11. In the Islamic perspective, the Quran tells how young Yusuf dreamed of 11 stars, the sun, and the moon prostrating to him. His father, Prophet Yaqub, Jacob, warned him not to tell his brothers, for they were full of jealousy. Surah Yusuf 12:4-5. Jacob understood the meaning. Joseph was destined for greatness. Joseph's dream was a sign of his future prophethood, but his brothers saw only jealousy. With time, the malice in the hearts of Joseph's brothers kept growing. They envied Joseph because they felt he was special, and they were not. Unable to handle their emotions, they devised a plan to get rid of Joseph. One day they made their move. His own brothers, driven by jealousy, took him far away. They threw him into a deep well. The brothers ran to their father, carrying Joseph's shirt that was smeared with sheep's blood. They lied to their father Jacob, saying a wild animal had killed him. Jacob was suspicious of their story. He in his heart believed his son was still alive and that the brothers were likely enticed by Satan to do evil. He remarked that the wolf was indeed merciful to have eaten his son up without tearing his shirt. He bore the pain with patience and prayed for his son's safe return. Meanwhile, Joseph was left alone, waiting for someone to find him. A group of traders passing through found the boy and sold him as a slave. This is how Joseph, the beloved son of Jacob, ended up in Egypt, a foreign land where he had no family, no friends, and no freedom. Joseph was taken to Egypt, where he was sold to a nobleman. In the Torah and Bible, he was bought by Potiphar, the captain of the king's guard. In the Quran, his master was called Al-Aziz, an important Egyptian official. Joseph was intelligent, hardworking, and honest. He quickly earned the trust of his master. Soon, his master put him in charge of his entire household. But his troubles were not over yet. Joseph grew into a very handsome man. The wife of Joseph's master became obsessed with him. She tried to tempt him, but Joseph refused. When he resisted, she falsely accused him of wrongdoing. Even though he was innocent, Joseph was thrown into prison. In the Jewish and Christian views, even in prison, Joseph did not lose faith. God was with him, as it says in Genesis 39:21. In the Islamic view, Yusuf prayed for patience, saying, "Prison is dearer to me than what they call me to," as mentioned in Surah Yusuf 12:33. Even in prison, Joseph's wisdom and faith remained strong. One day, two prisoners had strange dreams and asked Joseph for help. One prisoner saw himself serving the king wine, the other saw birds eating bread from his head. Joseph interpreted their dreams. The first man would be freed and returned to the king, the second would be executed. He requested the first man to mention his name when he would be with the king, and his predictions came true, but the first man forgot his promise. Joseph remained in prison for several years. Still, he made patience his own and spent those years in remembrance of God. Years later, the king himself had a disturbing dream. The king's dream was strange. 7 fat cows were eaten by 7 thin cows. 7 full grains were swallowed by 7 dry ones. No one could explain it. Then the freed prisoner remembered Joseph. Joseph was brought before the king. He explained, "The dream means Egypt will have 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. You must store food during the good years to survive the bad ones. The king was amazed by Joseph's wisdom. The wife of Potiphar, also known as Aziz, was trapped. She confessed to the king her false accusation. Thus, Joseph's innocence was proven. He appointed Joseph as Egypt's minister, placing him in charge of the kingdom's grain storage. In the Torah and Bible, he was the second most powerful man in Egypt. In the Quran, he was given authority and honor by Allah's will. The young slave had now become one of the most powerful men in Egypt. The famine struck exactly as Joseph had predicted. For 7 years Egypt experienced prosperity and abundance. Joseph ordered massive grain storage to prepare for the future. Then came the 7 years of famine. The famine also struck neighboring lands, including Canaan. People from other lands came to Egypt for food. Meanwhile, in Canaan, people suffered from starvation. Joseph's brothers came to Egypt for food too, but they didn't recognize Joseph. Joseph tested them to see if they had changed. When he saw that they had regret, he finally revealed himself. "I am Joseph, your brother." His brothers were shocked. The brother they betrayed was now the second in command of Egypt. Overcome, his brothers begged for forgiveness. In the Quran, Yusuf said, "No blame on you today. May Allah forgive you." Surah Yusuf 12:92. Joseph forgave them. Joseph invited his whole family to Egypt. Jacob, Israel, who had mourned Joseph for years, wept with joy when he heard his son was alive. He and his son, 70 people, settled in the land of Goshen in Egypt. This was the beginning of the Israelite presence in Egypt. The Torah and Bible say they lived in peace for many generations. The Quran focuses on Joseph's wisdom and leadership, showing how he saved both Egypt and his people. But what does history say? Historians have searched for evidence of Joseph and the Israelites in Egypt. There is no direct record of Joseph in Egyptian history, but ancient Egyptian texts mention Semitic people living in Egypt. The Hyksos, a Semitic people, ruled parts of Egypt around 1650 to 1550 BCE. And that famine, did this famine actually happen? Historians and archaeologists have searched for proof of this event. Ancient Egyptian records mention periods of famine. The Ipuwer papyrus, an Egyptian text, describes a time when the Nile failed to flood, causing starvation. Grain silos and storage facilities have been discovered in ancient Egyptian ruins, supporting the idea of long-term food storage. The reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat III shows evidence of famine relief efforts and granary constructions, which some link to Joseph's famine management. While no direct mention of Joseph has been found, history suggests that a foreign official, possibly Semitic, could have helped manage a famine crisis in Egypt. This suggests that people from Canaan, like the Israelites, may have lived in Egypt at some point. At this time, Egypt was ruled by a powerful civilization with many ethnic groups: Egyptians, the native ruling class; Semitics, including Israelites and Canaanites; Nubians from the south; Hyksos, the foreign rulers at one time. Israelites peacefully lived there for many years. But how long did they stay? The Torah and Bible say 400 years. The Quran does not mention a specific time. Historians estimate several generations. Joseph's story is one of faith, patience, forgiveness, and destiny. A boy sold into slavery who saved nations. For Jews, he was a blessed dreamer. For Christians, he is a symbol of Christ's suffering and glory. For Muslims, he is a prophet of patience. And for history, he is a mystery waiting to be solved. But the future of his people in Egypt was uncertain. Generations passed. The Israelites grew in number, until a pharaoh arose in Egypt who did not remember Joseph. And that's when their real struggle began. As pharaohs came to power, the Israelites lost their freedom, and soon a great leader would rise to lead them out of Egypt. In the next episode, we will explore the rise of Pharaoh, how the Israelites became slaves in Egypt, the beginning of Musa's story, the Great Escape, the Exodus. Stay tuned, follow this page, and subscribe to our channel for more.